Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today we're plunging into an incredible, often invisible system. It works tirelessly behind the scenes, keeping you alive and functioning without you even realizing it. It's kind of the silent orchestrator of your internal world.
It really is. It's a fascinating journey into the very core of how our body maintains balance, that lifelong struggle against ever-changing conditions. This system is just exquisitely sensitive to internal shifts, constantly making these precise adjustments to keep everything running smoothly.
Yeah, and we've got a fantastic stack of material for this deep dive, specifically excerpts from Human Anatomy and Physiology, 10th edition. Our mission. To unpack the secrets of the autonomic nervous system, or ANS, we're breaking down its structures, functions, and some surprising connections to your daily life. Get ready. You might have some serious aha moments that could change how you think about your own body. Okay, let's unpack this then. When we think about movement, right, we usually think about consciously choosing to move a muscle, like lifting an arm, walking across a room. That's your somatic nervous system at work. Direct commands. But what about all the stuff happening inside you right now? Your heart beating, your stomach digesting, your pupils adjusting, things you don't actively control.
Yeah, that's exactly where the ANS steps in. It's the nervous system's involuntary control center. It manages smooth muscle, think your gut or blood vessels, cardiac muscle, which is your heart,
Right.
and glands like sweat or salivary glands. It's really the unsung hero of homeostasis.
Homeostasis, that critical ability to maintain stable internal conditions.
Precisely. It's like your body's automatic pilot, making constant subtle adjustments, all without your conscious input.
That makes sense. But what's truly remarkable, I think, is how fundamentally different it is from that conscious somatic system. Can you walk us through the key distinctions?
Absolutely. Yeah, while both systems have motor fibers, they differ in three really crucial ways. First, they're effectors.
The targets they control.
Exactly. The somatic system controls skeletal muscles' voluntary movement, but the ANS, it controls internal functions by acting on cardiac muscle, smooth muscle, and glands. Totally different targets. Second, their wiring, the pathways. Think of the somatic system like a direct express train. A single, heavily insulated neuron goes straight from your brain or spinal cord to the muscle. Super fast signals.
Okay.
The ANS is more like a local train with a transfer stop. It uses a two-neuron chain. The first neuron starts in the central nervous system, then it synapses or connects with a second neuron outside the CNS.
In one of those ganglions.
Right, in an autonomic ganglion. Then that second neuron carries the signal to the target organ. This two-step process, well, it means slightly slower conduction.
Which makes sense, I guess. You don't need split-second gut reactions.
Exactly. Digestion can take its time. And finally, their chemical language, the neurotransmitters they use. Somatic motor neurons always release acetylcholine, ASHI, at muscles. And the effect is always excitatory, always causes contraction.
Okay, simple enough.
The ANS, though, is way more nuanced. Its second neuron can release either ASHI or norepinephrine, NE. And here's the kicker. Their effects can be either excitatory or inhibitory. It all depends on the specific receptors on the target organ.
Wow. So it's like a finely tuned orchestra. The ANS is deciding if a section needs to play louder or softer or even just pause for a bit.
That's a great analogy.
Whereas the somatic system just tells its instruments, play now.
Pretty much, yeah, full blast. That distinction is absolutely key.
But what's also really remarkable is how this one system, the ANS, isn't really just one system. It's actually two opposing forces, constantly at play inside you. You've probably heard of them, even if you didn't know they were part of the ANS.
Indeed, the parasympathetic and sympathetic divisions. The source material describes them beautifully, like two arms serving the same internal organs, but usually with opposite effects. It creates this dynamic, continuous balance, like a constant, gentle tug-of-war, keeping things running smoothly.
Can you walk us through those famous scenarios, the rest and digest and fight or flight? Give us a clearer picture of what each one does.
Sure. So the parasympathetic division, that's your rest and digest system. It's all about promoting maintenance functions and, crucially, conserving body energy. Think about relaxing after a good meal. Your blood pressure is low, heart rate is calm, your gut is actively digesting.
Pupils might constrict for reading.
Exactly. It's handling all the vital housekeeping. Digestion, absorbing nutrients, elimination, basically getting things done when you're calm and safe.
Okay, the quiet operator.
Right. Then you have the sympathetic division, the fight or flight system. This one mobilizes the body for activity or emergency. Imagine that sudden scare. Your heart rate shoots up, breathing gets deeper, mouth goes dry, maybe you get that cold sweat.
Pupils dilate wide.
Right. Those are all signs of sympathetic activation. This system constricts blood vessels in some areas to shunt blood towards active muscles and the heart. It dilates your airways for more oxygen, stimulates the liver to release glucose for quick energy, and temporarily shuts down non-essential stuff like digestion.
Because digesting lunch can definitely wait if you're running from a tiger.
Precisely. It optimizes everything for an immediate, intense response to a perceived threat.
It's just fascinating how they counterbalance each other. It's not like a simple on-off switch, is it? It's more like a continuous fine-tuning.
Absolutely. It's a dynamic adjustment happening all the time. Which system is more dominant shifts depending on the situation. It really highlights that our internal state isn't just a feeling, it's a direct result of this balance.
Okay, so we know what these divisions do. Now, let's get into where they come from and how they, get to their targets. The textbook highlights some key anatomical differences.
Yeah, and these anatomical differences are really crucial for understanding their functions. First, their sites of origin, where the nerves actually start. Parasympathetic fibers are craniosacral. They originate from the brainstem, the cranium, and the sacral region of the spinal cord, way down low.
Okay, top and bottom.
Right. Sympathetic fibers, on the other hand, are thoracolumbar. They arise from the thoracic, the chest, and lumbar lower back regions of the spinal cord. Middle section.
Got it.
Second, think about the lengths of their fibers. Remember that two-neuron chain?
Yeah, the preganglionic and postganglionic.
Exactly. Parasympathetic has long first-stage neurons, the preganglionic ones, that stretch almost all the way to the target organ. Then the second stage, postganglionic neurons, are really short. Sympathetic is the opposite. Short first-stage neurons and long second-stage ones.
Interesting. And the third difference?
The location of their ganglia where those two neurons meet up. Parasympathetic ganglia are generally located in the target organ or very, very close to it. They're called terminal ganglia. Sympathetic ganglia lie much closer to the spinal cord. Often they form that chain, the sympathetic trunk, running alongside the spine, or a bit further out in collateral ganglia in the abdomen.
That really helps visualize that two-neuron chain we talked about earlier. Okay, let's dive a bit deeper. How did these nerves actually reach their destinations? Let's start with parasympathetic. Where do those long preganglionic fibers begin their journey?
Well, from the brainstem, they run within several specific cranial nerves. These handle things like focusing your eyes, constricting your pupils via the oculomotor nerve, stimulating tear and nasal glands via the facial nerve, and activating major salivary glands through the facial and glossopharyngeal nerves, kicking off digestion right in your mouth.
And what about the vagus nerves? They sound like a really big player here.
Oh, they are huge. The two vagus nerves, cranial nerve 10, account for something like 90% of all parasympathetic fibers. It's incredible. They extend down into the neck and serve practically every organ in the chest and abdomen. They slow your heart rate, constrict airways, stimulate digestion in the stomach, small intestine, most of the large intestine.
90%?
Yeah, they're incredibly important. Then the sacral part, from S2 to S4 in the spinal cord, handles the pelvic organs, bladder, reproductive organs, the end of the large intestine. So parasympathetic control is quite targeted, quite localized.
Okay, clear. Now for the fight-or-flight pathways, the sympathetic side, the source says they're anatomically more complex. Why is that?
They are, and it makes sense for their function, which is often about widespread coordinated responses. Unlike the more localized parasympathetic system, sympathetic nerves innervate not just the internal organs, but also structures kind of in the periphery, the outer body. Things like sweat glands, those tiny erector pili muscles that make your hair stand on end.
Goosebumps.
Exactly. And, crucially, the smooth muscle in the walls of all arteries and veins everywhere in the body. That widespread control over blood vessels is absolutely key for regulating blood pressure and shunting blood where it needs to go.
Okay, so a much broader reach. And where do these sympathetic fibers start?
All the first stage preganglionic fibers arise from the lateral horns of the spinal cord, specifically from levels T1 down to L2, and that's why we call it thoracolumbar.
Right.
Now, from there, these fibers enter the nearby sympathetic trunk ganglia, that chain alongside the spine. Once there, they can do one of three things, basically. One, they can synapse right there at the same level they entered. Two, they can travel up or down the trunk to synapse at a higher or lower ganglion. Or three, they can pass through the trunk ganglion without synapsing at all. These form what are called splanchnic nerves, which then travel to synapse in more distant collateral ganglia, located out in the abdomen near the major arteries supplying the organs.
So much more complex routing options.
Definitely. This allows a single signal from the CNS to potentially trigger responses across many different levels and targets simultaneously. It explains why a stressful event feels so widespread. Sweaty palms, racing heart, dry mouth, all happening at once.
And there's that unique pathway to the adrenal gland too, right? That seems important for that full-body surge.
Absolutely critical. Some preganglionic sympathetic fibers take a direct route. They travel essentially straight through the ganglia, through the splanchnic nerves, all the way to the adrenal medulla, the inner part of your adrenal glands sitting atop your kidneys. They synapse directly with the cells inside the adrenal medulla. And when these cells are stimulated, they don't release neurotransmitters onto another nerve. They release hormones, norepinephrine and epinephrine, adrenaline directly into the bloodstream.
Ah, so it becomes a hormonal signal then.
Exactly. And that hormonal signal travels everywhere the blood goes, reinforcing and prolonging all those sympathetic fight-or-flight effects throughout the entire body. That's that sustained surge of adrenaline feeling after a shock.
Okay, communication systems need a language. The ANS uses these chemical messengers, neurotransmitters. You mentioned the two main ones.
That's right. Acetylcholine, He, and norepinephrine, Ne. Think of them as the words the neurons use to talk to each other and to the target organs.
Yeah.
It's pretty systematic, mostly. All first-stage ANS neurons, the preganglionic ones, whether they're sympathetic or parasympathetic, release HU.
Okay, HE for the first step. Always.
Always. Then, all parasympathetic second-stage neurons, the postganglionic ones, also release HE onto their target organs. Most sympathetic second-stage neurons release Ne. There's one key exception, though. Sympathetic fibers going to sweat glands actually release HU. A little quirk.
Interesting. But you said earlier the effect isn't always the same. That can be a bit confusing.
Right, and it all comes down to the receptor on the target cell. It's not just the chemical messenger, it's the lock it fits into. Same key, different locks, different outcomes.
Okay, so tell us about these receptors, these locks.
For H, there are two main types of receptors, named after drugs that mimic or block ACE effects at these sites. First, nicotinic receptors. You find these on all second-stage neurons, both sympathetic and parasympathetic, and also on those cells in the adrenal medulla. When H binds to a nicotinic receptor, the effect is always stimulatory. It directly opens an ion channel, gets the cell excited, depolarizes it, simple activation.
Right, nicotinic equals go.
Pretty much. Then there are muscarinic receptors. These are found on all the target organs stimulated by parasympathetic fibers, plus those H-releasing sympathetic fibers to sweat glands. Now here's where it gets interesting. The effect of ASHA binding to muscarinic receptors can be either inhibitory or stimulatory. It totally depends on the specific receptor subtype on that particular organ.
Example.
Sure. ASHA binding to muscarinic receptors on heart muscle slows the heart rate, that's inhibitory. But ASHA binding to muscarinic receptors on smooth muscle in your gut increases motility, makes it contract more, that's excitatory. Same neurotransmitter, different effects.
It depends on the context, the specific receptor.
Exactly. Now for Ne and also epinephrine from the adrenal gland, we have adrenergic receptors. These also have different types, mainly alpha, ALE1, AG1, and beta-1, beta-2 subclasses. And again, binding AE or epinephrine here can be excitatory or inhibitory depending on which subclass is on the target cell. For example, Ne binding to beta-1 receptors on the heart increases heart rate and force excitatory. But epinephrine binding to beta-2 receptors on the smooth muscle in your lung airways causes them to relax and dilate, inhibitory effect on the muscle, but helps you breathe easier.
This complexity really raises an important point. How do drugs fit into all this?
Yeah.
How is this knowledge actually used in medicine?
Oh, it's absolutely crucial for pharmacology. Understanding these specific receptors allows for the development of drugs that can selectively target ANS functions. Think about beta blockers. Very common drugs, right? They block those beta-adrenergic receptors, particularly beta-1 on the heart. This decreases heart rate and blood pressure, so they're a cornerstone treatment for hypertension, for high blood pressure.
By targeting that sympathetic effect on the heart.
Precisely. The source also mentions drugs like pilocarpine. It mimics parasympathetic effects by acting on muscarinic receptors. It can be used to constrict pupils, for example, in treating glaucoma, or to increase saliva production. It really demonstrates how precisely we can intervene in the ANS to, try and restore balance when things go wrong.
Okay, we've talked a lot about the involuntary nature of the ANS. That naturally brings us to reflexes, but specifically visceral reflexes.
Yeah.
How do those work? Are they different from, say, pulling your hand away from a hot stove?
They work on the same basic principle, actually. Visceral reflex arcs have the same 5 components as somatic reflexes. a receptor, a sensory neuron, an integration center in the CNS, a motor neuron, and an effector. The key differences are, one, that motor component is the two-neuron ANS chain we've been discussing.
Right, the preganglionic and postganglionic.
Yeah. And two, the sensory information comes from visceral sensory neurons. They're detecting things like stretch in an organ wall or changes in blood chemicals, irritation, that kind of thing, rather than external stimuli like heat or touch. Classic examples are the reflexes that control the emptying of your bladder or rectum. Those run automatically based on stretch signals, mostly without your conscious thought, although you can exert some conscious override.
So the body has all these intricate feedback loops just running constantly, keeping things in check without us needing to think about it. Amazing. But if these reflexes can happen somewhat independently, who's the ultimate boss? Who's conducting this whole internal orchestra?
Well, while specific reflexes are mediated by centers in the brainstem and spinal cord, for instance, there are centers in the medulla oblongata that regulate heart rate, blood vessel diameter,
The
respiration.
real control center.
The main integrative center, the top of the ANS control hierarchy, is the hypothalamus. It sits just below the thalamus in the brain. The hypothalamus acts as the orchestrator. It coordinates heart activity, blood pressure, body temperature, water balance, endocrine activity. It's really the central command for maintaining overall homeostasis.
Okay, the hypothalamus is the big boss. But what about higher level control? Can we influence it at all? Is it completely walled off from our conscious mind? Like, why does just thinking about something stressful make my heart pound?
That's a fantastic question, and it really gets at the mind-body connection. While the ANS is largely subconscious, our higher brain centers, especially the cerebral cortex, can modify its activity. This often happens through the limbic system, that's the emotional or feeling part of your brain. The limbic system has strong connections to the hypothalamus.
So emotions can directly trigger ANS responses.
Exactly. That's why just thinking about a public speaking engagement can make your palms sweat, or why the memory or even the smell of food can make your mouth water and stomach rumble. Your thoughts and emotions have a direct physiological pathway to your internal organs via the ANS. And while most of us don't consciously train it, biofeedback studies have shown that some degree of voluntary cortical control over visceral activities, like heart rate or blood pressure, is actually possible.
Fascinating. Okay, so the ANS touches pretty much every process in the body, metabolism, circulation, digestion, you name it. It's no surprise then that when things go wrong with this system, the impact can be pretty serious. The textbook gives some compelling examples.
Yes, absolutely. Most ANS disorders involve problems with smooth muscle control, often affecting blood vessels or digestion, for example, hypertension or high blood pressure. This can often result from an overactive sympathetic vasoconstrictor response. Basically, the sympathetic system keeps blood vessels too tight too often.
Maybe due to chronic stress.
That's often a contributing factor, yes. This forces the heart to work harder, puts strain on artery walls. It's a major health issue. And again, drugs like beta blockers target this sympathetic overactivity.
Right. What else?
There's Raynaud's disease. This involves these intermittent attacks where the skin, usually fingers and toes, turns really pale, then blue, and it can be quite painful. It's an exaggerated vasoconstriction, blood vessels clamping down too hard, usually triggered by cold or emotional stress. The severity varies, but it can sometimes be severe enough to cause tissue damage, like the body's response to cold goes into overdrive.
Wow.
Then there's a condition called autonomic dysreflexia. This is a really serious, potentially life-threatening situation seen in people with spinal cord injuries, usually above the T6 level. It involves this massive uncontrolled activation of autonomic neurons below the level of the injury, leading to a sudden, dangerous spike in blood pressure, headache, sweating. It's like a critical internal feedback loop goes haywire because the modulator signals from the brain can't get through. Shows how delicate the balance is.
That sounds terrifying.
It requires immediate medical attention. The source also touches on developmental aspects. ANS function isn't static. Its efficiency tends to decline with age. This can lead to common issues in older adults like constipation because gut motility slows down, dry eyes due to less tear production, and orthostatic hypotension.
That's fainting when you stand up too fast.
Exactly. It's due to the sympathetic nervous system not adjusting blood pressure quickly enough when changing posture. These age-related changes can be distressing, but often they're manageable. It just reminds us how vital this system is throughout life.
These clinical examples really hammer home the importance of this invisible system. It's not just abstract anatomy, it profoundly impacts daily health and well-being. So wrapping this all up, what's the big picture? The autonomic nervous system, with its intricate dance between sympathetic and parasympathetic divisions, its specific chemical messengers and receptors, its complex control by the brain, it's truly a marvel. It's constantly, quietly working to maintain that delicate internal balance, responding to everything from a tasty meal to a sudden fright, keeping your body humming along.
It really is. It's a powerful reminder of all the hidden mechanisms that allow our bodies to adapt, survive, and function, mostly without us even noticing. And when you think critically about seemingly simple things like your heart rate changing or getting goosebumps, you realize there are layers upon layers of complex control orchestrated by the ANS, connecting everything together.
Yeah, understanding the ANS isn't just about memorizing nerve pathways or neurotransmitters. It's about appreciating the incredible engineering inside you, how your body anticipates needs like needing more oxygen when you exercise, prompting the ANS to speed up your heart, or makes those tiny adjustments, like keeping your blood pressure stable when you simply stand up.
Absolutely. And for you, the learner, maybe think about how this understanding changes how you see your body's reactions. Why do you feel jittery when stressed? Why does that beta blocker medication work? It often comes back to the ANS. It's such foundational knowledge for understanding human physiology. It really shows how your body conducts this continuous internal dance, proving that sometimes, well, the most important work really does happen behind the scenes.
We really hope this deep dive into the autonomic nervous system has given you a useful shortcut to being well-informed, and maybe sparked even more curiosity about how you work. Thank you, as always, for being part of our last-minute lecture family.